live streaming to the world from somewhere just off the South Korean peninsula. Welcome, everybody. You've tuned in to show segment number 25 of World Pirate Radio News. I'm your host, as always, the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jeffy Ryder. We've got a whole list of news items to share with you, hoping to cover here over the 60-minute time frame that we've set aside for ourselves here. So time to dive in and get busy, of course. Never fails. Every week you can hear there's a lot of activity going on in the background at the moment. The crew's news people running off in all various directions, trying to get on top of the stories that they're working on tracking down, following up various leads and whatnot. So thanks for dropping by, taking a little bit of time out of your busy days. Hope your week's been going well. Things here on the peninsula. One thing I gotta say is, unfortunately, I honestly don't myself take the time to consume as much purely Korea-based news as I ought to, so that could be a bit of an oversight, I suppose. But at the same time, there's a lot going out there in the wider world that we can easily take a look at and set our sights to. Also should add that we've got a couple special surprise guests of sorts that have dropped in here for this week's live stream. None other than Miami Tom, aka Tommy Shutter, aka Free Cosmos, founder and CEO of the Free People of the Cosmos. I'm not sure if exactly you'd refer to as a spoof religion or not, but a man of many hats, yes. Hi, as we can see him now sharing with us in text chat here on Skype. Let's not forget, secondly, Princess Jaybird Wells, who has managed to drop by and reconnect with us here, as she had promised, of course. Had been hoping to see her join us this past week with our International Annual Talk Like a Pirate Day episode. Unfortunately, and maybe now is a good time for you to maybe join us here in the conversation, Jaybird, but I guess you had some work issues, some scheduling conflict. Yeah. What happened there exactly?
I don't know why, but I had it marked down on my calendar for tomorrow night. And then I had everybody jokes about me being Catwoman, so my Selena Kyle life kind of took away from my Catwoman life. So Catwoman couldn't join you last time.
You know, I got a pretty good idea why I had it marked down as tomorrow night, and that is because it is in fact September the 19th, which is officially recognized as International Talk Like a Pirate Day. So that would probably be the reason, I'm thinking. You just, of course, your busy schedule. Yeah. Not really. So now you know. It's because every Friday we put our weekly feature show out, and that the nearest Friday that we had to go with here was this past week, the 14th, of course. So if we did it this coming Friday on the 21st, that would have been after the fact. So I'm not sure how well that would have gone over, but yeah. And we've also got Yeah, Tommy Shutter's also.
Oh,
Go ahead. Yeah, finish up.
I was just gonna say, my Selena Kyle life, I went from a day job to a night job, so I started working third shift. So my life turned literally upside down. So I do apologize.
Oh yeah. Well, no worries. That's one of the things that we always take into consideration with people, guests that we've booked and have scheduled to join us. That people have their lives as well too outside of everything, pirate radio. So people get sick. People have various personal emergencies that arise, and you always have to give the guests the benefit of the doubt. Now, there are those in the past too who simply have not got back to us whatsoever, and those are the types who we've got no patience for or no respect for whatsoever. Of course, it's just I don't understand what it is, if what goes on in their minds exactly, but at least got to give you all the credit in the world, of course, because you were very forthright and honest, and that's all you can ask for, of course. Just what's going on. Tell us where things stand, and why it didn't come together this when we tried to put things together here this past week. So no worries at all. Let's just keep things rolling along here now, and pick up from where we left off, and just try to make the most of things from where things stand. So, hey, let me just say, we've also got, once again, Tommy Shutter here standing by in the wings. Tommy has actually been doing a little, well, actually maybe a lot, really, a lot of great work there over on the WPRPN.com website. Everyone, of course, encouraged to drop by there and check things out. Major facelift taking place at the moment, from the looks of things, Tom.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I'm more than happy to give you a tour. Any questions you might have. I think it's really a major overhaul, and it's, I think, going to enable people to really leverage off of your show and everything that you've got going on. They can leverage right off of your website, that direct connection, the networking off your site.
Okay, just in a nutshell then, I guess, 30 seconds or less, as things, just with the time we have at this particular moment. Of course, we got to get into the news here, but just give us a rundown of what's actually taking place there, and if people do drop by, and how do you get in touch with the web tech, the web alchemist?
The thing. You've basically got, if you want to go with the pirate moniker, the ship moniker, you've got this sailing ship, a big ship, and now people can set up their own quarters on the ship. We've got this capability with WordPress. WordPress has a hidden feature called multi-site. And what that does is you unwrap a few lines of code, and it basically changes the DNA of the site from a single site and gives the site the capability of spawning sub-sites, individual sub-sites of the main site. Kind of like your site's the mothership, and then now you've got these smaller sites within the site. So part of your tradition has been to give guests their own space on your site, and this now gives them basically their own website within your website. So anybody that wants to sign up and take advantage of that, you've got a little fee structure. If people click on the member sites link on your website, there's a little blurb there, and it shows some of the sites that have already been set up. So people can take a look and get a tour about what's capable. If you can do WordPress, you can set up a separate sub-site on Jaffe's website. It's all right there. They've got the complete capability. So
WordPress has,
you can network off of the
yeah, just kind of piggyback off the mothership, basically. So as you're saying, once again, just I think it's an important point, obviously, that warrants repeating. WordPress has a hidden feature.
Right.
It's known as
it's multi-site.
Multi-site, right? Sure.
Yeah. And
Isn't
see,
that
you can
something?
set it up one of two ways. You can set it up to where, if you really want to, you can set it up to where it creates subdomains off of your website, but you're not in that, your architecture of your web server is not set up for that. So they give you the other method, which is URL-based subsites. So whatever username you create, you become WPRPN.com / whatever username you create, that becomes your little world. And if you know how to do WordPress, or you can get somebody to do WordPress, like me, you need help with it, I'll be more than happy to help you set it up. And we can work out some arrangements for that. You can contact me. Once you set your site up, you're going to get an instruction page. Will be set up by default. It's got all your instructions there and how to contact me if you need help. So it's pretty simple. It's really quite simple, as I used to say.
Yeah, well, we've actually to this point been offering all of our guests complimentary network subdomains, and are committed to continuing in doing this, of course. So anyone who does join us here as a featured guest, someone like Jaybird, Princess Wells, she's got the green light there, really, completely free to put her own little WordPress blog site, which really, I think, the way I look at it, it boils down to just an online subdomain area where you're able to put your just a blurb kind of overview of who you are, what you're all about, couple key photos, and URL web links which lead off to all various other directions in social media, as far as, say, Twitter, Facebook, or minds.com. Let's not forget that.
You can put any links you want on there. You can
Sure.
put anything. We've even got a plugin on the server that you can enable pulling in your own YouTube links. You can pull your YouTube channel in. And so there's quite a bit of leverage here. And as this thing rolls out and people begin to get more comfortable with it, Jaffe's going to be plugging the member sites on his show. You come over to the member sites and see who's affiliated themselves with the site, and you can begin a network with the Pirate Radio Network. It's exactly what I know you've been trying to put together for a long time, Jaffe. So I think this is going to be a good ad for you. I think it's going to work out really well.
WPRPN.com, World Pirate Radio
right.
Podcast Network.
You got it.
Well,
it's
in
place.
Sure, and no small part, and thanks, of course, to you. Great job and a lot of great work that you are currently engaging in over there. Working.
There's a lot of power here. There is an amazing amount of power. If people leverage this moment on your website, they're going to get quite a bit of power, because for what you're offering, and really you're charging a very low stipend or tribute to get involved in this for people that want to do it, that aren't guests, but that want to leverage off of this and your networking capabilities. There's a lot of power here. This can work out really well for you and for the people that participate. I think this can be a really cool networking tool. So,
well, now that you brought the
I
top,
am David Wells, and I approve of this message.
Hey, listen, now that you brought the subject up, of course, something that people are going to want to know about, of course, the bottom line, as always, what are the rates set at presently? What are they looking at? What sort of a fee or cost is in place?
If you click on the member sites link at the very top of the website, you're gonna go and you're gonna see a list that's automatically generated. So as soon as you set up a site, your username gets added to that, and we can take you off of that if you prefer not to be known on there. But that's not, you're going to miss out on the leverage of this moment. But if we've kind of humorously put on there, if you're a podcaster, musician, etc., just a regular landlubber, it's $60 a year, which is dirt cheap to get to be a part of a member network like this. And then you've got a business rate of $120 a year. So really, this is, I think, it's peanuts at whatever level you get in for whatever you want to do. It's peanuts to leverage off of a network like this, because you take an anchor site like WPRPN.com. That's the anchor. This is the guy that's out there pushing his brand twice a week, and you've created quite a crew and following around yourselves. Now those same people that are part of this, you can go from just being a fan to actually leveraging off the main site. So I think this is a great tool.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at that right now. WPRPN.com/member sites. As you said, the link is right up there in the top, the menu area, obviously. So I'm not going to click on too many of the links right now and see where they lead. Although I do see we got Tommy Shutter, Augie Nost, Raw Rights, and there's a few others I'm familiar with here. Johnny Webb, Free People of the Cosmos. So yeah, things definitely taking flight and taking shape.
Yeah,
so
those are the sites that are set up. You're going to see most of them that have the WPRPN logo by them. Those are the default installs. So those folks need to come on over to the site and get busy changing up your website, get your own logo on there, get your own content. Right now you're advertising for me, which I appreciate, but it's not doing you any good. You need to get on here and change up your site. So that's definitely in your interest to come back out. And, we're here to help, and it's not going to take much to get it going. If you're fairly good with modifying a Facebook profile, this isn't much different.
Yeah, this is like just completely fresh and hot off the presses here. So, in fact, this is the first time I've even had a chance to actually see this site. We were just in the lead up to things here in this week's live stream, worried about getting the main homepage restored, as I'd gone about behind the scenes and because of the new system that's in place, clicked on the wrong link. I hadn't saved anything, but I guess it seemed to want to auto save or something or another, and had to work out just a few of the bugs there.
That's the beautiful part about WordPress. That is the beautiful part about WordPress. It has a revision control system built in. So if you screw it up, you can go back to that page and you can restore a prior version of whatever page you're working on. It's very simple to just do a restore. Plus, the site's backed up, everything's backed up, and if really the thing got into a major disaster, we might be down for a couple hours, but it's generally pretty simple to restore. But when you just mess up a page and you're like, wow, I've made a complete royal mess of this, you can go back to an older version of your page, and poof, you're back to where you were. So it didn't take anything to restore that after I saw that. So
right.
Just takes a second to do a restore.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd done anything too major. I just couldn't understand what had happened. So we could maybe talk about that more after.
Yeah, we can do the techie side of it. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we're almost halfway through the 1 hour time frame we set aside for ourselves here, and haven't got into any of this week's world news, unless of course you consider this a breaking world news event, which I guess in some ways it really kind of is.
I'd say so. I mean, you've unleashed, and like I keep saying, I know I sound like a broken record, but this is a powerful networking tool for anybody that associates themselves with your business or social network, because they can leverage basically another website right off of your website.
That is indeed the case. So looking forward to seeing how things, from this stage of course, further manage to fall into place and take shape, as it were.
At one point, you had people kind of blogging directly off of the WPRPN site, and basically giving them a kind of a URL of their own, a page to do their own thing on. But it was kind of a blur between purposes. Some of these folks had their own purposes, which wound up representing your purposes. So there was a munging of different agendas. This lets people have their own quarantine space, to have their own little playground to leverage right off of your WPRPN website. And of course, there's an obvious courtesy here. You don't want people coming in and creating havoc even in their own space. These are people that align themselves with you and your network. So I would think this would be, friends and family, friends of the show, and people that want to leverage off your cachet, your reach, you know.
Yeah. Up to half a dozen people join us here now in this week's live stream show, segment number 25 of World Pirate Radio News, here with Miami Tom, aka Tommy Shutter, and Princess Jaybird Wells. So maybe we could, well, I think if there's anything more, Tom, that you've got to just to share with listeners, let them have it. Full barrels blasting.
I don't want to say too much. I think let them come, let them dig around,
check it out,
set up a site, check it out. Yeah, and if you got questions, just contact me. Yeah.
What is your email address, and is it easily accessible and available? I guess you got a link there right off of the site at TommyShutter.com.
Yeah, it's too hard. Just go to the Tommy Shutter subsite and click on the picture. It'll take you to my website. I got a contact page and all that. My phone number's even there if you're in the U.S. Well, it doesn't really matter. You can still get a hold of me around the planet, and just come to the website. It's all there. I'm more than happy to talk to you. So.
You're welcome to actually hang out and engage us here, or just to offer your own 2 cents, your contributions as far as the news stories are concerned. I think we shared a RTF file here in the. No, we haven't actually got around to doing that. It doesn't look like, but we're going to. Jaybird's already got a copy of the talking points here, so you can just kind of take a look, a bit of a rundown here of the news stories that we've managed to come across that have more or less fallen onto our radar. Drew Lima was doing a really great job until he left us, of course, and headed off out to North Carolina in search of more gainful employment than unfortunately what we were able to offer. So he was actually each week as a co-host and co-producer of the live stream, putting up and publishing a G drive, a Google document that was easily accessible. Just a one-click kind of deal, and really nice format and very user-friendly, of course. So we've shared here, though, in the chat area, the RTF link, of course. And I think we've actually got a copy of this over in the Robinhood. That's where the confusion partly may have existed. So, no, they don't have a copy yet either. But Jaybird, just a little more than, I guess... Well, you had a chance to take a look at the news stories. Was there anything that really jumped out at you, other than the fact that, as it turns out now, apparently, according to one Sesame Street writer, once again, this whole story of Bert and Ernie being gay, our worst fears have been confirmed, as it turns out.
Oh dear.
At least, well, so when I say that, of course, that's all, it's in jest, tongue in cheek, but. Yeah, for some at least, I guess their worst fears have been confirmed, and that Bert and Ernie, as it turns out, all this time have actually really been gay. So gay puppets. What do you figure? Gay Muppets. Is that something the world can actually live with?
Well, I mean, they have all the same parts. Okay, that was funny. Okay, here you are. That was funny.
It sounds to me like it's just kind of another thing that we're being ginned up to worry about that doesn't really matter.
Well, didn't Cookie Monster turn vegetarian or something?
Geez, I think he did. He's gone all soy on us there a couple of years ago, didn't? I think that's what happened.
Let's just pump hormones down our system so we can get more gay and let's get more cancer. Yeah, that sounds like a game plan.
Before we carry on any further into this, let's just give a big shout out as well too to Psycho Fire, who's dropped into the live chat here. For whatever reason, I'm not sure why, but I would often get him confused in the past. He's got a bit of a backstory, Psycho Fire. More kind of a blue collar type worker, maybe almost along the lines of what you find yourself up to there, Princess. Little different though.
So
grease monkey type deal, machine shop. I think you might have talked a little bit in the past about working in a machine shop. So, I'm at the age now where if you got a backstory or some personal details, I get to all too often hear the particulars twice before they finally manage to stick and register. If not, then chances are, it's I'm going to get things all mangled or garbled and confused, unfortunately. So, but yeah, Cookie Monster and Ernie have they've now been outed as gay. But this was a story that and this was just trending on Twitter just a short while ago, with trending on Twitter. This is a story that was in the news a number of years ago already. It's haven't we heard the story already? I mean, it's this according to one of their writers, Mark Saltzman, I believe his name is. I could actually work on. We got the link here in the RTF file document, but it's.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, here's something interesting. I don't know if anybody knows, but the Sesame Street is almost in every country, and they actually have different backstories in each country. So.
Well, what I'd like to see what the Islamic one looks like. That'd be something.
I don't think they have one. I know Israel's one is called Shalom Sesame. It's been a while, but I know Mexico's got one, and they're in Spanish. I mean, it just fits fits the agenda or the culture around which country they're watching it in.
Yeah. So what it says here is Mark explained. This is just his opinion. It's just what his particular take on the matter is, and for some reason it's big news, but for out there for the whole world to see. Mark explained that the duo is a reflection of his own same-sex relationship with film editor Arnold Glassman. Okay, jeez. I'm not sure. Was he a part of the original team? Ever since Sesame Street started in 1969, fans of all ages have grown to love two of the original characters, Bert and Ernie. And while their speculations, nature relationship, I mean, Jesus. Says Mark Saltzman confirmed in an interview with LGBTQ lifestyle website Queerty that the two are indeed a gay couple. I mean, how can you? It's absurd and ridiculous. I don't think he created the Muppets, did he? And secondly, I mean, more than anything, they just seem like roommates. So the whole thing is quite absurd, and there's a lot of people that are just kind of rolling their eyes to the whole thing. So they're friends and roommates. Just leave it at that, And there's no reason to read anything more into it, I don't think. So that's my take. But it's a good point that you make, of course, too, the way that they kind of tailor and structure each of the, as you say, it's as it finds its self appearing at various places throughout the world, and they try to take a more like a culturally sensitive approach to things. Yeah. Yes, as far as the shape of the show is concerned.
It's like you could have the same newspaper and they'll print like a different picture and a different title for the same story to like cater to the crowd that's in that district.
Right. Yeah. So, well, that was just once again one of the stories that jumped out at me just a few minutes prior to actually going live here this week with this week's web stream, World Pirate Radio News show segment number 25. I'm not sure if go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you see that one when they were talking about 70,000 white people have been killed or murdered in Africa just because they're white?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What now? Sure. And this is something that the mainstream press, a lot of the mainstream press, is trying to deny, or say it's just like a white supremacist conspiracy theory. Like, I mean, what are your
Not when
thoughts?
their farms are being taken away from them and they're no longer allowed to be free men and they're not allowed to be armed anymore.
Right. Oh yeah. Did you now you're picking up on what we shared in the text file, is that right? You gave it a gave it a look and that was one of the stories that jumped out at you?
Yes.
Right. No, that's been a hot news story, obviously, and Russia has been taking in a couple. They've taken in a couple thousand South Africans. I don't know why America has not done the same, or Canada. It's quite odd. Maybe they have, and I just haven't heard about it. But
It's
you
a
know,
bit political agenda.
right. Well, you think it would, as far as Trump was concerned, because
Yeah.
why not? What's the deal? So, and the whole I mean, they are political refugees. Clearly, if they're being persecuted that intensely, then that's been my take on and my position personally. Not that it really matters, frankly, because I'm not in a position of influence as far as actually deciding what what legislation comes into being or anything along those lines as far as crafting a nation's laws. All we can do as spectators is stand back and comment on these things, and maybe from time to time point out that the emperor does in fact not wear any clothes. So but with me, and I think with a lot of really generally just rational people, it's been a case of you let people into your country. And in fact, this leads into the recent statements via the Dalai Lama, of all people, who's now almost kind of, maybe did he, I'm not sure if he's changed his tune or shifted his position. I know he's long and quite proudly declared himself, as far as self-identification politically, to be a Marxist. But as far as immigration is concerned, he's saying Europe is for Europeans, and that is not an Arab uh, region, really. That Arabs should make their homes in traditional Arab regions, Europe for Europeans, and so on and so forth. So, and in fact, I'm not sure if you've got that story at your disposal or not there. If
Yeah.
you managed to pull that, did you have the RTF file there on board? Is it open?
On the link. Yeah.
For some reason, geez, I had the, here we go. It was open and it closed again now automatically
The
for some
farm
reason.
murders.
Come again?
Oh, they're calling it the farm murders. Official
Yes.
farm murders.
Well,
They're taking their land.
yes. Go ahead. Did we lose Princess?
No, I'm here. I was just getting sucked into the story again. It says it's as of January 1st, 2017, it still has no signs of being recognized as the first genocide in the history of mankind. So I don't know why it's being ignored, but it's being ignored.
The first genocide in the history of mankind. I'm not sure. I quite pick up on what you said there exactly. There's been many genocides, of course, and this is just the most recent one. It's the most recent.
Yes. It's being hushed.
Well, in Africa historically has known countless genocides, has it not? I mean, come on.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, they're constantly warring with each other. I mean, the tribes are constantly warring with each other. And the different little sects and culture, and each one has a different culture, and they don't always get along. I know I read some story, and I can't quote it right now, but the women in this area got so irritated with being abused and stuff that they started their own matriarchal society that only women are allowed in that village.
Matriarchal, yeah, sure.
So well, I mean, it's just like they have different segregated groups, in different regions and tribes, and there's not really a unity. There's not. It's just they're always warring against each other, and then they enslave, and nobody wants to talk about it, but they enslave each other from the wars that they have.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, the West Coast Native Indians did the same thing historically in
Yeah.
Canada as well too. The region of British Columbia where I spent a lot of time in my youth, there was a well-known tribe known as the Carriers, and the reason they were called that was because they carried a lot of shit for other people. You know, so they were the slaves, and they were like, as with Africa, as you say, they were constantly. I mean, don't take me, take these other guys, okay? Can we make a deal
Yeah.
here? Like, I don't want to go. Like, here, let's do a little business here on the side. So, don't even get me started with the transatlantic slave trade business, though, because you might not want to hear my thoughts on that. I know you've stated in the past that I've seen what we talked about, and that you can't expect nor can anyone. I say you can't expect. I'm speaking generally now. One cannot expect to necessarily always agree with everything that other people are, espousing or putting forward. So, and the same could, I'm sure, easily apply in our case, you and I, Princess. So, but with the transatlantic slave trade, um, well, don't get me started because, like I said, you're not going to want to hear probably what I have to say on the matter. And I got no dog in the fight. I'm just calling it like I see it, an impartial, neutral observer. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and in the Torah or the Bible, it's they're indentured servants for paying off debt, and it has nothing to do with being a slave. They're supposed to like pay off their debt, and then they were supposed to be free, or they could choose to remain in service to different people. But that's not the same thing as being taken, stripped from your home, and not allowed to eat or drink unless somebody treated you like an animal. It's just it's not the same thing. It's not paying off your debt. It's being a victim.
Yeah, slave in the worst possible sense of the word. So, and I'm not sure how Islam handles that. Of course, you're bound to find a variety of cases and examples, a whole range from, scenarios where Islamic people that have followed, the Muslim faith have been quite compassionate uh, when it comes to dealing with slaves, and others that have been quite terrible and atrocious, just brutal, brutal. So, which kind of makes me think about what we hear about from time to time in the news coming out of Saudi Arabia, where you've got these, I think, is it Malaysians and people, maybe Indonesians, what have you, that find themselves in the Saudi Arabian region of the world and working as house servants. It's not a very pretty scenario at all. I'm not sure if you yourself have heard too much as far as that whole business is concerned, but a lot of
Yeah,
horror stories, to say the least.
I have to admit I've been worried about focused around what's going on in America, and there's the problems with instead of being house slaves, they're sex slaves in America when they're being trafficked, and it's just I wish we could do something about that.
Well, what we can do is talk about it, I suppose, and help to shine a light on these different stories that are out there in the news, and maybe even the ones that the world has not yet heard about because of the various underground grassroots channels that exist, and that, you know, sometimes we're actually the
Right.
first people to hear about these things, or at least among the first people, that for whatever reason mainstream media has not picked up on it, or they just don't care to report on it because, as you referenced earlier, it doesn't necessarily serve their political agenda. So,
And that's
mm-hmm,
that's why I don't have a war on fake news, because it's almost like the big, it could be likened to the big farmer corporations squashing the small farms. And to me, the war on fake news is the same thing. It's major news networks squashing their competition. And I would rather listen to everybody's opinion than to sit there and tell somebody to shut up, and I don't want to listen to them because I might learn something new.
That's an excellent point. That, of course, what better way of doing things when you don't agree with somebody or you see them as a threat to your industry and your success than trying to brand them with smear them with some sort of like a fake news label or just something that hopefully you can have people react to in a negative way, turn them on, ad hominem attacks and that sort of thing. The fake news, for the most part, fake news, it's both. It's in the alternative, so-called alternative media, as well as just the establishment media as well too. Whether it's the radio, newspapers, television, internet, you name it. It really there are no bounds or limits really. So and are you up to speed on this whole business of Operation Mockingbird, the CIA infiltration, and the way this has long been the case in America since at least the 1950s? And people really, why is it that people even trust anything they see on their television sets or reading in the newspapers? There's, unless you're actually there at the ground level and can see things firsthand, that so much can be distorted and really just warped in a sense where the story gets turned completely on its head through the manipulation of language. It's not that you have a gift, a skilled writer, someone who is, lacking in the ethics department, because hey, they're just doing their job, right? That's what they're expected to do, and the duty their boss is banking on, right, and counting on, hoping that they'll perform. Then they're gonna cook up some bullshit story and spin to things. Not a problem.
Well,
It happens, and it's more routine than what most people realize. Go ahead.
when I went to college and did marketing and media, I noticed that you can cut off the first word off of an interviewer's or a guest's opinion, the first word or the last word, just cutting it off one word, and it changes the entire context to fit the questions that you are asking, that you're manipulating, that you're trying to, your agenda that you're setting. And I really found that frustrating, and I wanted to make a difference and start my own, network or whatever. But at the time, it seemed like it was more, all the networks were more liberal based. I'm like, I could never work there because they'd never hire me, because I just can't go around and manipulate people's stories. I want the truth to be known, and I just couldn't edit that out. It's a sad ordeal when it comes to the guests. And then another thing I noticed is that it's legal to do subliminal planting, up to 30 frames, I believe, was what I remember. And part of that, I can understand that they cannot change that, because if that's taking things too far, but we need to be at least aware that subliminal messages can be put up to the 30th frame. Yeah, we can't legally squash that, because then you'll screw up the whole entire sharing network of, I mean, you wouldn't be able to put a pop can in there because it doesn't last 30 frames or whatever. So, Yeah, you can't get rid of that, but you can be at least aware of the problem.
Subliminal advertising is a topic that we've covered here in the past via pirate radio podcasts. So it's likely to find itself coming up once again and being discussed in some depth or detail. Go ahead.
It's just that there's good things and there's bad things in the world, you know, and it's just how you use them.
Yeah, well, and all too often people have products to sell, and they are willing to call upon various means that are not always the most scrupulous or ethical, shall we say. As wary consumers and members of the public, we simply have to be awake and on guard from falling victim to these ploys and strategies. So that's really all you can do.
There's been an awakening.
Mm-hmm.
I believe everybody's realizing that we've got to start seeing stuff with our own eyes and start checking ingredients. And even start growing things ourselves so that we know what's in our food.
Absolutely. Chatting this week with Jaybird Princess Wells. She was not able to make it this past Friday night for the International Talk Like a Pirate Day feature show. We should maybe, now that I mentioned that, actually try to quiz you a little bit, hopefully not putting you too much in the spot. We'll give you a couple moments to rack your brain as best you can, come up with, hopefully you managed to do a little bit of homework and we're at least somewhat ready to appear on the decks of the Robin Hood. But before we do that, just like to give a big shout out and a tip of the pirate hat to Miss Kitty 22, Bicos_GR, that's GR for Greece, at Dancing Cosmos, and Joe Pyatt, Jopiet, Joe Pyatt, regular listener to the show, crew member of sorts too, of course, Pirate Joe, fellow American expat making his home here upon the South Korean peninsula. So all of them, Minds channels and supporters, people that have wired us Minds tokens over the last couple of days. So very much appreciate your support, and we will be sure to see to it that half of everything that you have shared with us does go directly to helping out various charity and community causes, including the likes of people that we have supported here via the show for some time: Carolyn Rose Goida, James Heydrich, Richard Whipple, and UFO political prisoner John Ford, including, of course, anyone that you would like to help support. You just name it, and we will most definitely do our best to see that they are taken care of. So big thanks and word of thanks once again. Miss Kitty 22, Bicos_GR, Dancing Cosmos, and Joe Pyatt. One of the stories that we really should spend a little bit of time getting into here, because it has been such a big deal over the last week, really, is these the solar storms, Hurricane Florence as well too, but just in the context of everything, extreme weather, you name it, the Roswell observatories and many others around the world have been shut down.
I hadn't heard that.
Over the last week or so. Yeah, are you drinking right now? Or I'm not sure if that's static interference or somebody swallowing some liquid.
No, probably chewing on my nail, sorry.
Oh, well, okay. Just, yeah. Generally, when people aren't talking, once again, we try to remind guests and so forth to be sure to mute themselves. So you haven't heard of the solar storms, and well, maybe this is one of the things, in fact, where we could, if he's still around, ask for Tommy Shutter to jump back in here and lend his 2 cents, because I think he's a little more up to speed on the whole issue. What do you think has been going on then exactly, Tom?
Well, we don't know. And see, this is the great time for speculation. There are some say that there are UFOs, a giant, massive fleet of UFOs coming through the sun. Now, there's some really, as crazy as that sounds, there have been over the years people that have been monitoring these stereo observatories that are satellites that are in a stereo configuration out in space that gives scientists a stereo view of the sun. And there have been people that are monitoring these feeds that are getting weird pictures of giant objects that are coming and going apparently through the sun. And the common retort to that is, well, it's an abnormal aberration, it's this or that, it's everything but giant UFOs, planet-sized UFOs coming and going through the sun. So without evidence, we can't convict. So we don't know for sure if that's true or not, but some say there was a massive fleet that had come through, and that was one of the reasons why they shut it down. And then there's other reasons, there's other conspiracies, there's just a whole host of other speculations going on. But until we know the story, all you got is good speculation. That's really all you can say.
Well, scientifically,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, scientifically, the Earth is closer to the sun every 50 years. We had the same temperatures as during the Great Depression, and so they're starting to change back, because we're getting farther away from the sun. So
that's in relationship to climate change, but that's not in relationship to why those observatories were shut down.
No, that is not. That is fucking curiosity, where we need to find some fake news sites to read what they've got to say.
The facts of the case are this: the FBI came in and shut these things down, and all they said was it's a security issue. Now, there is another theory out there that says that Chinese hackers, because one of these observatories was located near a military base there in New Mexico, they were saying, well, these guys had been using the observatory as an antenna to gain access and cause, cyber hacking or a cyber attack against the military base. So again, without evidence and without details, this is pure speculation, but this is some of what's being said.
That would make sense.
Well, it can make sense, but again, this is the thing. People try to connect the dots without evidence. There's a lot of that going on in the news. This is what's troublesome about the news. So when people say fake news, it's when people make the leap. They'll make a leap, like this guy, this whole, Pizzagate thing. This guy made a leap. There was evidently the rumor or the conspiracy theory was that there was a basement there was a basement dungeon of sexual molestation and pedophilia going on in the basement of a pizza parlor. There was no basement. But this guy shows up with a gun because he's been misled by conjecture and speculation. So this is the problem that we have. We're getting a lot of stuff being thrown out there into the ether, into the radio space, into the media space that doesn't have any basis on solid evidence. And so it's difficult. And then you have an incredible amount of spin going on with the real stories. Real stories are being interpreted, well, he didn't lose, he won in another way. He didn't win, but he lost in another way. So it's all about spin, about how people, one side says they're winning and the other side says, no, you lost. And the other side says, no, you lost, we won. So people are torn into tribes now about what they believe. They believe, well, my team won, and the other team believes your team lost and my team won. Well, it just goes back and forth, and people are just finding ways to fight. It's just a division, a strategy of division. Getting back to your original discussion about Mockingbird and this manipulation of the media by these alphabet soup agencies.
And that's where we've lost where it needs to say it's an opinion piece and that it's not based on complete facts and just
Right. Hard news.
speculation.
There's a really important point you just raised there because first of all, what is fake news? This is a new kind of catchphrase and slogan that's just recently come out of nowhere. It's taken fire, of course, and gone viral. Now everybody is just parroting the term mindlessly without asking themselves, well, what does this even mean in the first place? And as you say, editorials, which have been a mainstay of news and media content for many years, versus the hard news. You got soft news as well too, as I recall, from just trying to remember what it was that I did study all those years ago back in the few journalism electives and courses that I took in university. That important distinctions to be made there. So editorials and opinion pieces, as you, Princess Wells, quite very appropriately talk about, versus hard and soft news. Hard, of course, who, what, where, why, when, and how. There's no disputing the facts, nor should there be. Let's just be as accurate as we can. Go ahead, Tom.
Back, I just turned 60. And so I look back when I was coming up, you didn't know Walter Cronkite's political persuasion. You didn't know David Brink. Maybe you did. Maybe the people that were really into it did at the top. But I just remember growing up, I really didn't care what his political persuasion was. I just knew that Walter Cronkite was going to give me the news. He was going to spin. He wasn't really going to spin it. He was going to report it. These guys reported the news, and they did their utmost to be factual and high integrity. For them, that was everything.
Yeah. Now, Tom. Now we know, of course, Walter Cronkite, longtime Bohemian Grover, voice of the Moloch, the owl that they have out there at Bohemian Grove, and unavowed globalist.
But I know what
cult
you're
of
saying,
personality. Beware the cult of personality.
These guys, but you didn't. They didn't spin it Republican or Democrat like
right
now. There
true,
was
true.
not the divisive nature of it. It may have been manipulative, but it wasn't as divisive.
Well, and it's not so much even what they do share and what they put out there, so much as what is kept back, concealed, and you never even stop to think about because they don't bother to draw it to your attention. If you know what I'm saying? It's like it's kept completely.
I know there's always been these dark influences throughout history. I get that, but it just wasn't as divisive. There's such a divisive nature to every bit of it that's going on. Everybody's always looking for the worst, the demonization. There are people that are in the public space that I don't particularly like. Like, for example, this recent thing that happened with Alex Jones getting basically tossed from all the big platforms. I don't like the guy. I might have listened to him years ago, but you know what? My motto is let the fools rage. Let him speak. Yeah. You can turn him off. You can scroll on. You don't have to listen to him. He can speak. Just as much as the left wants to speak, the right can speak. Let them speak. As long as they're not getting violent, as long as they're not hurting anybody, let them speak. And maybe they are inciting violence. This is not good. Then it gets into it. There is a manipulation going on. But I think people need to kind of grow up a little bit and not allow themselves to be manipulated. And I think this part of this conditioning, this paternalism that wants to safeguard your freedom at the expense of your freedom.
Yeah.
Make your world safe and harmless.
We've got a huge amount of civil wars going, or cold wars going around the whole entire world, where there's just a huge amount of unrest and misunderstandings, and then there's this war on bullies, but nobody's talking about the bullies in the adult world. All they're focusing on is the bullies in the kid world. And I mean, some corporations and news networks, they're bullying the smaller companies to step down, and they're making fun of them, and that's how they build themselves up with power.
Well, somebody figured out a long time ago that negative controversy builds traffic. Negative controversy will bring eyeballs and attention to a topic, to a website, to a news event. Negative controversy was a momentary thing that everybody went, oh my God. And then it became the norm. And then everybody figured out, oh, really? We can get these people fighting about it. And we get them fighting about it. They can come to our website. That's more traffic and more advertising. So this tribalism and heating up of arguments and fueling it. And it's not just the Russians that meddled. It's our own advertising agencies. It's the corporatism that has been fueling this as well. With polarizing news departments, polarizing TV stations, polarizing arms of everything.
Why is it all Russia? Where you don't think China or Israel? Come on, these are like two of the biggest hacking. They have
People complain about it. People complain about Russia, but it's not necessarily Russia. It's our own media.
Well, it's not. It's not. It's. Give me a break. I really doubt the Russian. That's all just a lot of muff fake, as Kaiser Schuff would put it. And there's other places. And here's the thing. Maybe it is Russia. Why though are there not other countries that are being fingered or mentioned, such as China or Israel? You mentioned China just a little while ago within the context of these the Roswell observatories going offline, and who knows what other ones as well too. But that's just a sort of example. You don't think they have hacking capabilities? China, Israel, of course they do. And this came out in the recent, was it Senate or congressional hearings with respect to hashtag blame Russia, that at the end of the hearings, one of the people who was providing testimony asked, "What about these other countries? Why is there no talk of this at all?" Like how childish do they think we are? How infantile and stupid? Like, come on.
Let me tell you something. It's not that Russia meddled. It's that people bought it. That's the scary part. That people have lost their critical thinking capability, and they are easily manipulated by social shares, by shares on Facebook, that they don't even do their own personal fact checking. When something looks a little amiss, they don't go, wait a minute, let me go check that out and do a quick search and see if that's really a true fact, if that's really true. People don't take the time. Oh, that really looks, oh man, I'm sharing that right now. And they pass it along without even vetting it. People have lost their ability to vet news, to think things through, to look for the good. We got to start learning to be nice to each other again. It just seems to be lost.
But that's what I'm sorry, but in the public school system, the government should not be in charge of the public school system, because then that gives them a chance to manipulate the children into what they are supposed to think. It used to be where in the school system, kids were taught critical thinking skills, and now they're just taught, oh, we've got to get it through this test. You just got to memorize these facts.
Whatever happened to civics class and consumer education? Civics like
debate,
this is sure.
Ethics class. The ethics class is gone.
Yeah. So all kind of incrementally just gone by the wayside, and I don't. They probably don't even teach 1984 anymore. Where's that classic book by Orwell gone? I know that it was standard fare for us when I was growing up back in the 80s, let's say, and Animal Farm as well too. I think we read, along with a few other real kind of cutting edge sort of the chrysalids. That was, I'm not sure what to make of that exactly, but John Wyndham. But Orwell's 1984, absolutely standard fare, and we had to write essays and do a lot of conversation.
And now we're living it.
Yeah, it was sure.
You got the
Everybody's
internet
being triggered.
where everybody is focusing on the internet, and one of the things about critical thinking skills is when you're face to face with somebody and having an actual conversation, you can read their body language, you can read, their facial expressions, and you can tell whether they're joking or not joking. And that's a critical thinking skill.
You can also misread, don't forget, but I mean it works both ways. Yeah, sure.
When you're stuck behind the computer or your phone all the time, you're not practicing or working that part of your brain.
Right.
Not to mention, everybody's relying on stupid Google Maps that gets you lost in the middle of the night, trust me. what happened to reading maps the old-fashioned way and using those critical thinking skills? And then you've got, people aren't memorizing phone numbers anymore. They're just pressing the stupid speed dial button. We're losing that side of our brain of critical thinking.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's a direct quote from Alex Jones. Isn't that interesting?
Well,
I can actually remember hearing him say that one time. And see, this is the thing, is we are living in an age of triggers. People are being triggered every day. If you need to get triggered, just get on Facebook for 10 minutes. You're going to get triggered. I'm telling you, people are being triggered, emotionally triggered daily.
Well, look, even comedy, for crying out loud. There's every time you make a joke, there's going to be some people that aren't going to like it. It's just the way it goes, okay? Jokes aren't made to please everybody. Not too many jokes that I've ever seen performed or presented. So that's a real kind of key area, the stand-up comedy, which is really great. Of course, that's why George Carlin was so wonderful, because he let us have it, and he laid it all out there and on the line. So we need more types like him, of course, to really just give it to us.
We also need to recognize truth when we hear it. I know that was a little uncomfortable moment there when what Princess said was the direct quote about going back to using our critical thinking skills. But I can still remember somebody sent me that quote from Alex Jones. It's like, we don't want to hear the truth from the people we don't want to hear it from, even when it is the truth. And so we've lost this ability to say, wait a minute, now that guy had a point.
Well, no, that's right. That's called basic fallacies. Hell, I didn't come into contact with these things until I actually enrolled in university, and thank God it's something that I constantly try to revisit. And there's a lot of websites where you can, if you just type into your DuckDuckGo web, search engine. Once again, speaking of Alex, likes to reference Google and just Google it. I don't know, hasn't Google kind of thrown him under the bus? But anyway, that aside, DuckDuckGo, logical fallacies, and what we see there with Alex Jones is like the genetic fallacy. It's like, generic, is it generic or I think it's genetic. Generic. One of the two. God damn it, get your facts straight. But I'm not saying this definitively. Well, Alex Jones said it. It can't be right. Alex Jones said it. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, there are truths that have come from dictators. There are truths that have come from people.
Adolf Hitler said 2 + 2 is 4. Well, Adolf Hitler. Come on,
yeah,
Adolf
exactly.
Hitler.
So we can't hear the truth from our enemies, even when it is the truth. So we've become so polarized, and it's awful. That's part of this critical thinking where you go, wait a minute now, can I entertain an idea without being affected by it? And that was something I believe that's a quote from Plato or Aristotle. To entertain a thought without being emotionally triggered. To say, okay, let me just think about that. There's a group that came out back in the 90s, Kula Shaker, and they did a song about the truth will come to you in strange disguises. And it's a kind of a haunting song, but it's that is, I think, a sign of actually growth, is being able to say, okay, I don't like this guy, but you know what, he just said something that was kind of true. I don't like this guy, but I gotta admit the guy was probably right. That's hard to do for most people to say, and that's how you reach political consensus between opposing sides, is to kind of come together in the middle and say, well, they do have these libtards actually want to take care of people. Is that so wrong? Or these right-wingers really want ethics in government? Is that really so wrong? Okay, so we need to come to the places we can agree on and say, okay, yeah, maybe we should take care of old people. Maybe we should take care of our veterans. Maybe we should take care of people. Maybe we should be nice to people. Maybe we should have good common sense gun control. Maybe we should do that. Maybe there's an idea here. Instead of immediately jumping for the throat as soon as somebody says an opposing viewpoint, say, no, wait a minute, why would they even come up with that? Why would they why would a human being come up with a thought like that?
Well, if you take the name calling out, then it makes it a lot easier for people to listen. That's one of the rules I have on my 4 public figure accounts, is don't name call in the debates, because I've actually had people change their mind because they were just given facts without being belittled.
Right. It's about
and
being nice to one another.
yeah, it's what happened to respectfully agreeing to disagree and walking
Exactly.
away.
Exactly.
And that's why I'll sit there and I'll sit down and watch CNN. I'll watch Fox News. If I can watch, you can always learn from your enemies or people that you disagree with. Even science fiction, you can learn from TV shows. If you just open your ears, you can listen and learn.
Well, science fiction, I'm a science fiction author. I love science fiction. Science fiction is the playground of what if. And so if you can play with what if, if you can learn to play with what if, you can invent a cell phone, because that's what they did in the first Star Trek. Captain Kirk and the communicator, that became our cell phones. That was flip phones were the first, incarnation of the communicator. So the what if area of science fiction, people think, well, that's just a bunch of kooky nonsense. It's a playground of what if. If you can begin to play with what if in your mind expands. You say, what if we could create a better world? What if we could start thinking positively instead of negatively? What if we could be nicer to each other? What if we could stop road rage? What if we could stop being so polarized? And what if we could stop being so angry?
Well, how do we get from where we are now to where we want to go? That's, I guess, therein lies the rub.
With not, like she said, she was absolutely right on. Instead of calling me a libtard snowflake hippie, say, wait a minute now, he's got a right idea here about being nice to one another. I can do that. What about, instead of calling people names and polarization and immediately trying to trigger them with a label, because that's what those labels do. They trigger people. Oh, you're just a this or that. And that immediately lays on them all those negative connotations associated by branding them. You're like sticking a hot iron on them. You're a damn libtard, Tom.
I just cringe to hear that. I really do.
All right,
well,
name calling.
For all of us.
Name calling.
It's hate.
Name calling. Well, people are entitled to their opinions, and that's the whole thing. Yeah, the hate speech. That's really problematic, and that's totally anti-First Amendment, of course, too. Because just because somebody dislikes another person or expresses a passionate view or disdain or criticism, let's even say, I mean, that's where it's gotten to the point now where there's so much of this, the hate speech. What's the difference between disliking or having a different perspective on things, a critical opposition to, let's say, versus hate? And it's just too much of blurring the lines. And the First Amendment, last time I checked, it protected unpopular speech as well as people's right to an opinion which may offend others and even to the point piss them off. And if the whole thing too is, so many people forget about, if you don't like something that you're watching or that's online, just you got the remote, turn the channel. There you go.
This is the thing. To marginalize.
Yeah,
right.
But
to
Tom,
marginalize differing opinions is wrong. This whole thing where Alex Jones got kicked, I don't like the guy, but to kick him off these platforms, I think was a mistake. It begins this paternalism. It begins this.
And it was a conspiracy too, clearly, because of the way that it all came about, very quite systematically and all at one simultaneously. So clearly they were in communication with one another, unless of course you're just going to chalk that up to coincidence theory. But let me just say, we've only got a little bit of time here. We've already overshot the mark. We kind of got sidetracked there with waxing philosophically and into the minutia of I'm not sure what exactly, but a lot of great points nonetheless with respect to ad hominem attacks and name calling. Of course, we should never stoop that low, because you've lost the argument or debate when you've got to resort to name calling. That never, well, it's effective though, I suppose, in winning some of your audience over, but I would never recommend it. So anyways, quite a few talking points here and news stories that we didn't get around to covering. I'm just going to give a quick rundown here on the pop culture end of things. Paul McCartney, it's either his 17th or 18th solo album release, Egypt Station. Any Beatles or Paul McCartney fans, encourage you all to check it out. It's pretty cool. I myself have been a long time Beatles fan, as well as Rolling Stones and every other classic rock group probably that you can possibly imagine. But anyways, this most recent release, very well done, and listening to the way it's structured from a musical standpoint, I mean, he's an amazing talent, of course. So definitely give it a listen. We'll pass on what also was news over the last little while with respect to McCartney and his Beatles circle jerk story. Group masturbation. People can, if they're really that keen on getting to the bottom of it, do a search for it, but I'm not going to spend too much time getting into that right now. Yeah, InfoWars, not going to talk about that right now. There was an interesting story dealing with how thousands, apparently, claims InfoWars, of camouflaged men armed with assault rifles were crossing over from Mexico into Arizona. That we've included in the RTF file. Hopefully get that up on G Drive here at some point. We discuss the solar abnormalities, the flares, as well as claims of the sun's corona creating a geomagnetic solar storm. Maybe that's what helped to trigger Florence out there on the east coast of America. Been making some big news, of course, having a heavy impact, wreaking all sorts of chaos and devastation. Is that man-made climate change? What are we to attribute it to? Myself, I'd be more inclined to suspect HARP or scalar weaponry, even Tesla technology. Don't know, can't say that definitively, but can at least hypothesize.
Didn't they do some kind of a seeding during World War I in the clouds?
Oh yeah, that's been, well, not that far back, but Vietnam era for sure. It's been going on for quite some time. But so yeah, this weaponizing, well, let's not forget too, and I don't want to get too sidetracked or bogged down because we do have to wrap things up. We've overshot the mark here once again. But this World Weather Warfare Treaty that was signed in Geneva in 1976, ratified in 77, all the world powers were pretty much involved and included a part of things. So why was this having to occur back in the mid-70s? Just imagine how far they've come since that time with respect to world weather warfare technology. Why was John F. Kennedy as far back as 1961 discussing the matter at the UN, these very same things, talking about owning and controlling the weather? So there's so much clearly that's been going on behind closed doors that we rarely ever hear about in the mainstream fake mockingbird media. That's
yeah, but Jaffe, all you got to do is look up in the sky.
The chemtrails?
Yeah, we're not allowed to say that anymore. That's Fashion Police will shut you down. But no, that's true. The chemtrail thing is, and trying to explain it to people from a scientific standpoint, people are so immunized against believing that it's even possible.
Yeah. Well, to look at the distinction between chemtrails and contrails. We'll save that for another time, another show.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But absolutely great point and something well worth talking about over in Canada, because we like to shift the focus now to Canada. We've already talked about what's happening in South Africa to some extent, of course, and the thoughts that recently His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has shared as far as Europe being for Europeans, and that Muslims being welcomed freely into that region of the world only to sow the seeds of chaos should not be something that is promoted at all, because it's simply only in the most extreme case scenario. And that's one thing that I never made really, I think, clear. Did not finish my thought earlier, but of course, extreme vetting for refugees, political refugees. You're being persecuted by your government. I mean, maybe they want to get rid of you for good reason. Maybe you'll end up finding yourself relocated and start to cause a bunch of trouble in the country that you've recently emigrated to. So who knows? Maybe there's, once again, they're trying to get rid of you for a good reason. But of course, compassion ought always play a role in the decision-making process, but that in addition, in conjunction with extreme, serious vetting, just doors are being thrown too far open, of course, and that's been taking place now here for far too long. Over the past you could go as far back as looking at the UK, the Blair government once again using massive immigration as a means of winning the elections, basically. This is under the Blair government, of course, too. That was central part of their strategy, as it has been now a long time situation in Canada as well. So something that not only Justin Trudeau cashed in on, but also his father before him too, let's not forget. Speaking of which, there was a secret report that came out that we weren't supposed to know about, and I guess the powers that be could turn around and call us all conspiracy theorists now for having been presented with this information, but it is our duty to report on these things. A secret memo talking about how Canada was expected to receive all the riffraff from the EU, the rejects, as it were, that the EU even themselves would not dare to take in. To send them to Canada. Trudeau will do all he can to accommodate. So we'll add that to the show notes here as well and get that up via a Google document file. People can, at the same time, in the meantime, conduct a web search via DuckDuckGo and see if they can do their best in tracking down this news story that we are referencing here. So, well, that's about it, folks. I think we've pretty much reached almost the bottom of the hour here. And typically, initially when we launched this feature, World Pirate Radio News had been intending on only live streaming for an hour. 25 segments now, and at least half of them have been well run a little further past that point. So just kind of an organic flow to things, I suppose, and you work with the energy that you have to deal with, I suppose, or just run with and go with the natural flow of things. So any closing comments or thoughts here? Let's turn the focus first over to Princess Jaybird Wells, and then back to, of course, Miami Tom, aka Tommy Shutter. Princess, any just thoughts or closing comments?
Just find me on Facebook, Instagram, International Movie Database. Give me a shout out. Say hi. Say I heard you from Jaffe on the World Pirate Network, so I know who you are. I appreciate being on the show. You make me feel at home. You guys make me feel like part of the clan, so I appreciate it.
I'm not sure if that's the best if that's the best way of putting it. Was that spelled with a C or a K?
C, a
Yeah,
clan, you know.
yeah. Given the context of some of the conversation talking points that we've shared this week, part of the clan. Just imagine, yeah, if a
Or
guest.
the crew,
Yeah, there
you
you
know.
go. So that's fine. I'm razzing you, and I don't really care what listeners think. So as Tom was talking about earlier, who knows? Maybe it would be better for our show's momentum and ratings if we were to stir up a little more controversy, let it all hang out to the point where we maybe find ourselves picking up a strike or two. And
I guess you just need to have the witty, big mouth co-host more often.
that always helps. It's tough flying solo. Absolutely, it's not something I've you work with what you got, I guess, and it's something I've taken upon myself. But I'm always happy to have people here as wingmen and women. So yeah, I'm glad that you were able to join us here and kind of make up for the lack of the appearance on Friday. And but once again, totally understandable, and everyone has their own schedule and lives to lead, and there are personal health issues or family emergencies that occur, of course, scheduling conflicts, you name it, communication, the wires of to communication sometimes get crossed, and you work with what you're, just you were straightforward and honest, which is a lot more than I can say about some other people that we've had join us here in the past, unfortunately. But we'll definitely be sure to reach out to you again. There's no doubt about that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't remember what I was just gonna say. Just honor and chivalry, just be honest to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a central part of the pirate code as well too. Let's not forget.
Arrrrrrrr.
Speaking of which, we didn't get a chance to grill you there. Were there any terms or references, catchphrases that you were hoping to share with us? This, or even pieces of trivia, let's say, in pirate lore that you had planned on sharing with us this past Friday?
All I can think of right now is, since I'm a mermaid author, all I can think of is the son of a fish and the holy carp. And that song from Pirates of the Caribbean has been on my mind for the last month. I can't get it out. Where we're just, the one where they're talking about, it's the one where the kid gets hung, and it just shows the commodity. Oh, is that the right word? Commodity.
Commodification.
No,
Commodification.
just the unity of loyal of being.
Oh, camaraderie.
Yeah. Yes.
Camaraderie.
Yeah.
Sure. Uh-huh. Well, I don't. There was a child that was hung. They were actually killed.
It was on the movie Pirates of the Caribbean.
Which one?
Where I don't remember which one it was, but it's at the very beginning of the movie. Let me see if I can come up with it real quick.
Okay, while you're doing that, you just mute yourself, and if you want to, maybe just drop back in a few moments. But before we turn the focus back to you, let's have Miami Tom step into the picture here. Not to be confused with Bruce Springsteen's Miami Steve, who, I mean, hey, talk about guests for the show.
I kind of retired the Miami Tom moniker because I moved away from Miami. So I had to kind of retire that. So that's why we moved to the new branding of the Tommy Shutter, which kind of relates to the camera and the photography and stuff like that. I had to come up with something that was simple.
Formerly known as Miami Tom. Formerly known as.
Stuck with it. I'm stuck with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, some people that write with squiggly letters took over my domain names. I gave them up. So now these people in some Middle Eastern country took over those domain names. It's kind of humorous. They must have liked the names, so they took them. And I said, oh, okay. So, but no, this has been fun, Jaffe. I'm here and available if anybody needs help with the sub sites. And I think it's a great deal. You're offering a really great deal. It's a great way to network and share your stuff with other people of like minds on your website. You know, leverage the network, the pirate network.
Yeah, it's there as a network hub and a portal and a way of people, former guests, of course, they've got the complimentary sites that they're able to put together. I've done in the past, I was helping to put together these pages, basically subdomains for people, former guests, and it took no more than just a couple minutes, 10 minutes tops, really, to put a picture up with some key URLs
Well,
and a bit of a blurb, and there you go.
this helps people if you're trying to get, let's say you're trying to run your own thing, you know, or trying to promote a product or service. Maybe you're a freelancer of some kind, or maybe you run a small business. Leveraging your name out here, like you said, we've got a couple of sites that's really all it's got is a couple of URLs on there and a screenshot of their website, of their regular websites, linking back from this website. It helps your reach. You start to notice when you look at your stats that you're starting to get some hits from people you never would have got hits from before because you got your name here on Jaffe's website. So you've created another network point out on the internet than just your own website. Now you're leveraging not just your own website, but you've got this other marker out there on the internet that's pointing back to your website. So it's this networking capability that's true networking. It's not just, I've gotten referrals this way through other networks. People said, yeah, I found out about you over here. Really? A place I would have never imagined. So people can utilize this kind of thing, and you're basically providing them an amazing service at a song for a song. So I hope it really works out well. I hope people get it, the power that they're getting through this. Maybe we've understated it, what they're getting, but they really are getting an incredible amount of power from this. And I'm not trying to really overstate it, because when you network like this, you're pulling people from another world. You're bridging another group of people into your world that maybe would have never heard about you. Maybe you sell jewelry, maybe you sell trinkets, maybe you sell t-shirts. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're a lawyer, maybe you're a dentist. It doesn't really matter when well, a dentist really isn't going to help globally, unless you're doing, medicinal tourism. But it doesn't really matter. Anything you want to put on these subsites is going to help your main website, wherever your main website is. So that's just my encouragement. Take advantage of it.
Fellow podcasters, bloggers, anybody out there with a bit of a social media presence and personality, absolutely. Even products of some sort that people are looking to sell. So what are the prices? I'm not sure if we were too clear on that when we first tried to have that addressed.
You have an entry level, kind of a nice guy price of $60 a year. Now, what does that come out to per month? Do the math. Was that $2 a month, or no? $5 a month. Yeah, it's dirt cheap. $5 a month to get on this network and basically get a whole website. You're basically getting a WordPress website for $5 a month. Jaffe's basically hosting your ability to put a complete website on his hosting. You don't have to go get hosting. You don't have to worry about getting the domain name set up. All you need to do is pay him $5 a month, and poof, you can utilize a complete separate section of the website. You can put your own background, you can put your own pictures, you can pull your YouTubes in there, you can put your Facebook feed in there. It's all kinds of stuff. There's really no limit to what you can put on these. I mean, within reason, there's probably some limits, but if you want to put some pointers to your other social media places, you can do it here. You want to put some links on here, just put simple links and a few photos on here, who you are, what you offer, and what your other social links are. Put them on these pages. Poof. You'll say, oh, wow, within a short amount of time, you're going to get a referral. Somebody's going to say, hey, I didn't know who you were. I didn't know you did that. Wow, you offer that service. Wow, I did not know. You're going to open up a whole nother world of people to whoever you are through this network. So I think it's a great idea. And if you're a business, $120 a year. What does that come out to? I'm no good at math. What does that come out to, Jaffe?
Well, that would be 10. Double the 60, I guess. 10,
Okay, so
10 per
right,
year.
exactly. Duh. Right. Okay. Sorry, it's late for me. I'm on the other side of the planet. You're getting ready for lunch, and I'm past my bedtime. So, uh, yeah, $10 a month. And there are places out there that you cannot get for $10 a month that will provide you an entire website capability. So, quite a bit of leverage there.
I was noticing too that the Twitter actually, even before we embarked on the upgrade and the recent facelift to things, that the Twitter feed would come through automatically. So I imagine that's still the case with the way things have been upgraded, as it were. Will be interesting to see.
There's probably a widget or something we can activate. If it isn't there, we'll reactivate it. But that's the thing, is there are different plugins. If there's a plugin that's working for you on another website, like exactly pulling in a Twitter feed onto this website, you start doing a search for your name or your whatever it is you're trying to market, you're going to find yourself on this website going, wow, wow, it really did work. I'm showing up over here on Jaffe's website. I'm showing up on his server. So these little pages actually make a difference. So you can pull your Twitter feed in. That's not a problem. That's easy. There's enough Twitter widgets out there that can do that.
Sure. I mean, one of the things it's meant to do, of course, this feature with the subdomains is to promote various personalities, of course, everything that they're all about. But also redirect traffic and have them visit, as you've been talking about here, Tom, just YouTube, Facebook, or other social media. Minds.com, let's not forget about that. Great platform as well, too. One that we always encourage people to check out.
Think about the styling. Some people say, oh, I don't like the style. I don't want to be part of that. Well, guess what? You can style your own separate section, your own little sub-site. You can style it your own way. You know, you don't like the colors, you don't like the background, fine. You got your own background, you got your own colors, you got your own layout. This thing's completely customizable. There's no real limits to what you can do. You can spend as much time on it as you want and trick it out, and it'd be a nice little spot on the web for you, and you're good to go. And that's what, like you said, Jaffe, the ability to redirect traffic back to your other sites, interconnecting. This is how you generate what's called search engine optimization, getting your name out there on different places. And when you put your name and your links on a site that's bigger than your own, it gives you a weighting. It adds weight to your social media presence. It adds weight. So that's something we can say is actually a fact. So by putting yourself, docking your little spacecraft onto this mothership, adds weight to your social media presence. You may not realize it right away, but give it time. The more you build this out, the more you build out your own website, the more you build out your own social media presence, then whatever it is you're trying to market or get out there, your message, whatever it is you're trying to do, maybe you've got a book like like the Princess has, whatever it is you're trying to market and get out there, you can help to leverage that by getting on as many other sites as possible, and sites like WPRPN.com that have started to really get some reach. They give you reach by being on the site. So I hope that makes sense.
WPRPN.com. That's where you'll want to be dropping into and taking a look at the way that we have recently upgraded things and the new facelift layout.
And we did add a little pirate flavor to that. You cannot bring in any pewter lead. We do not accept lead or what else is it? Scalps, furs, or any other clay pots. It has to be done in gold or dollars.
I'm sure it's all going to be undergoing a whole number of changes here as time goes on as well too.
That's right.
Sounds like we have got a train a coming there via.
That's my ride. I gotta go.
Okay. as do we all. Princess, you had just a final closing comment here before we put this one to bed for the night.
I was just talking about the Pirates of the Caribbean song, Hoist the Colors.
Yeah, yeah, raise the anchor, hoist the sails. Definitely. So, I guess that...
Never shall we die.
Well, that sounds like a plan. Wouldn't that be something? So, that about does it, folks. That is a wrap. World Pirate Radio News Show segment number 25. Be sure to drop by the website WPRPN.com. Take a look at what Tommy Shutter's been talking about here. In the meantime, be sure to drop by later this Friday night when we have former Art Bell show producer Dr. J. Ilias join us as a feature guest. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, on behalf of Captain Long John Sinclair, Princess Jaybird Wells, Tommy Shutter, and all the rest of the crew here on the Robin Hood, I'm your host, as always, the show's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.